Hello and welcome to a new episode of my Entrepreneurs and Leadership Live podcast. In this podcast, I'm talking to global leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs about success, keys, hacks, tricks, and to build and grow your business. Today, I'm so proud to have Nadine Heck on my show. And the topic today is about the power of connectedness. And Nadine, she has been coaching, consulting, teach lessons learned to help others overcome obstacles to create and sustain relationships. Her company, Because Global Consulting, helps individuals and organizations to connect to their core purpose across silos within enterprises with external stakeholders, friendly and even adversarially. And Nadine is a regular speaker and speaks about cultivating relationships and related topics, including stakeholder engagements, multi-sector partnerships, corporate social responsibility, and simply learning how to effectively connect. And last but not least, and I'm so excited to have her really on this show, she wrote a book, The Power of Connectedness, and the foreword is written by no less than Desmond Tutu, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate from South Africa. And just to give you a very short idea what Desmond Tutu is thinking and saying about Nadine, I'm just repeating a little bit about this forward. And he's talking about Harvard University and IMD Business School, both called Nadine Heck, a master bridge builder. And having known, admired Nadine from the viewpoint of Desmond Tutu for many decades, he agrees completely. He has seen her effectively connect people from all corners of the world to help each of them advance their respective mission. And I'm so happy and proud to having Nadine here in today's show. And please give a big applause to Nadine. And yes, we go. Nadine, I hope I summarized that quite correctly, and I'm really so happy to have you here. Welcome, Nadine.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Do you want to add something? You have a very
No, 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 that's
incredible
great.
past, yeah, and present.
Everything you said is lovely. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yeah, and just to have an understanding, um, why do you focus on relationships as the most important dimension of creating sustainable success? What is your idea behind that? Why is that so important?
So I really love the Welsh quote, he or she who would be a leader must be a bridge. And I see the connected leader bringing together divergent types of people for the advantage of each and all. And I really believe that our times right now, where there's a lot of people trying to foster division, cry out for this type of leadership. I see it as the foundational North Star to create healthier dynamics where we live and work. And if I dare to dream, I can even envision that together we can create a freer, fairer, more prosperous and peaceful world. And I guess I've come to the realization that I won't see the complete fulfillment of all the issues I care about, I've championed, or the total transformational awakening in institutions that I've worked at or consulted for in response to efforts to break down barriers. But I see this as a long relay race. So I have a sacred responsibility to carry the baton forward, standing on the shoulders of those who preceded me and us. I move forward and make everything better as well as I can and build on others' progress. And then I'm also really happy that there are new generations out there carrying it forward themselves so that they can keep it going.
I love this. It's really a big vision. Your big why, and I agree. It's, the whole life is about relationship. It's not only about you. It's a relationship, a communication in every facet of life. And to make the world a better place, we have to communicate. We have to relate to each other and to be interconnected in what we're doing in a good purpose. I can only stress that, and for entrepreneurs as well, to find your why is your values and why is so important what you want to do to help people. It's not about so much what you can do as an entrepreneur. It's more what you can provide as a result to people, to your target
Yeah,
customers. Yeah.
you know, I have to say that while people often refer to relationships and those kinds of things as soft skills, I actually see them as the hardest skills and the backbone of making everything else possible. I mean, even if we're not aspiring, as I just laid out, my kind of vision for like making a better world, even if people are just concerned about doing better in whatever place they occupy, whether it's in their business unit or their neighborhood, um, everything turns on relationships. I mean, you know that 97% of strategic plans fail. And that's not because the people who wrote them are not brilliant. In fact, they're very smart, but they end up sitting on a shelf, gathering dust. And why? Because they didn't build into the plan all these wonderful ideas of what was going to be, who would execute it, how they would get the buy-in from the people who actually have to carry out the tasks, in what timeline, within what budget, uh, and by underplaying and misunderstanding the importance and the necessity of getting that buy-in through building relationships and making the other people feel valued and validated and like they have ownership of the process. Um, we fail so often when we could succeed simply by reaching out.
Hmm. I think you already started to say what are really the core components of what you call connectedness. I see that as well. Means you have to, in terms of a company, you need this buy-in, but the buy-in only happens if the people are behind the common vision, behind the common values. There must be
Yeah.
something objective. Your North Star has to be not identical, but at least you have to want the same end objective, where you go both can go as an employee and as an employer, or as a team member and as a leader. And
Yeah.
that it's so important. This buy-in doesn't happen just to write down your code of conduct, your code of culture, your business plan. It's only pink ink on a piece of paper. You have to do actions, you have to live it, and you can only live it in a team, in a society, if you put it in a bigger frame, only if you have common values and a common vision to achieve that. I agree completely there.
So, Michael, I just want to mention something because I'm talking about connectedness and I'm seeing something on the video. As you know, I had a technical crisis this morning and I moved my computer from where it usually is to another place, and the place is lower. So I'm looking down at my computer. So my eyes are looking down rather than if my computer were here, where it would usually be, I'd be like looking directly at you. So I want you and anybody who's watching this podcast to know that I am looking at you. I'm just looking at you through a screen that's down. That's why my glance is downwards. Something as simple as that, making eye contact.
Yeah.
Um, the human touch is such a vital element of everything we do.
Yeah, especially if you have this live communication in a virtual Zoom conference or team or whatever. I don't want to
Yeah,
make advertising. You lose some information because you don't see the whole body language, only you see the face. And
exactly.
yeah, and I have the same problem because I have to run a little bit the show. Means I have the different screens. I'm looking sometimes offside the camera, and it's not. I know that. Yes, sorry. Okay. But you just entered a little bit into the core components of connectedness. What, because you said already the relation build relationships, but probably can give more ideas behind that. What you mean by that?
Sure. So, my expertise is connecting the dots. And in doing so, for quite some time, a thread emerges of at least 5 C's of connectedness.
Mm-hmm.
And each of them play out in relationship to self, to family, to work, to society, and their communication, cooperation, compassion, courage, and consistency. So, just a bit on each of them, like communication. So, at every level of society, from grassroots, local to global, clear and honest communication is essential to break down what we've been talking about, the us versus them.
Mm-hmm.
Every nation, from the smallest and poorest to the biggest and richest, has its own version of us and them, just as every organization. Who are the in people, who are the out people. Right now, we see that a lot of authoritarians are exacerbating this division to sow chaos and destroy truth. And so I see that in the face of these daunting challenges, it's imperative that more people learn better methods of communication, approaching those within and beyond their tribe to respectfully address common and differing problems. So that's communication. And cooperation, and again, these are like very, very short, distilled from like, I can go on about each one of these topics way more, but I'm just trying to give you the heart of it. In cooperation, the old adage, two heads are better than one, is the reminder that cooperating with a broader group of people leads to better solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So I advise people not to worry that others will steal and take credit for their ideas, or that sharing their ideas or their contacts will somehow lessen their status. Um, Cooperative participation doesn't diminish in any way your self worth. In fact, it enhances it. And if you think about it, the word co-creation has entered the popular
Mm-hmm.
lexicon. But do we really embrace it when we cling to the idea that our individual power comes from being the sole keeper of knowledge, contacts, or skills? We take our eyes off the prize. And so compassion, oh my God, I could go on forever about compassion because it's everything. Without compassion for others and ourselves, there's very little motivation to communicate or cooperate. And
Absolutely. Yeah. The
one of my
empathy,
idols,
interest in other people. Yeah.
yeah, empathy and interest in other people, absolutely. And one of my idols, the late U.S. Congressman and long time civil rights activist John Lewis, wrote an op-ed piece which was published posthumously because it captured the essence of what he believed, which is millions of people motivated simply by human compassion laid down the burdens of division.
Mm.
So to me, his life work is an example of what Tara Brach calls radical compassion, and I'm calling for radical compassion. And then the last one, consistency.
Mm.
It's not enough just to take on a cause or a project and achieve a modicum of success and then walk away patting ourselves on the back for a job well done. The exhausting truth is that the job is never done. Constant oversight and adjustments are critical. Tremendous, even modest advancements must be continually increased, and the methods that achieved it must be shared and duplicated. And, again, I think that ties into what we were talking about with uh, strategic plans. I have a process that I call green light, orange light, red light. Green light is like, okay, we've made a plan together.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving in the direction that we want to, exactly at the speed that we hope. So everything's good. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Orange light is like, okay, we've done some of what we thought we would do, but not exactly, and it's happening too slowly. So let's do a little pause and figure out, how to make course corrections. I think strategic plans are like living, breathing documents, not, cast down in stone. They constantly have to be iteratively revisited. And then red light is like, we're not getting anywhere
It's
in the
not
way that we
working.
thought we would. You know, all our hypotheses was wrong. Let's go back to the table. Let's bring back in our stakeholders. Let's ask people we didn't ask before. I mean, one of the biggest challenges that I see for C-suite and board member level
Mhm.
is that they, well, they do in fact have the directional oversight guidance, the vision of where they want to go, but they somehow have this feeling that if they just do one big announcement, that it's simply going to cascade down through every level of the organization, right down to the shop floor. You know, and it might not be a shop floor if it's not a, you know, an organization
Yeah, I know what you
manufacturing,
mean. I know exactly what you
still like
mean.
the people on the ground who have to. And so in my perspective and from my experience, the more you engage, honestly engage, you know, ask for the opinion of the people who are really doing the work.
Hmm.
And this is whether in a business enterprise, the people on the shop floor level, or in a social enterprise, the people in the field, the grassroots organizers who are actually dealing day to day with the problems, they usually have the best solutions. So this requires, I mean, all of these things require kind of letting go of our ego a little bit and not thinking, you know, and being respectful of people who are maybe in lower positions than us, seemingly on their organizational chart, but realizing we can learn from anyone. I mean, very early on in my company, when I created my company, I created the kind of structure that I always wanted to work in.
Yeah.
And whenever, and in addition to the staff, we always had interns from universities. And whenever each new intern came, my staff would say to them, listen, you're invited to the weekly strategy meeting. And when Nadine says, does anybody have any ideas? Please feel free to offer your ideas, because she's going to like listen. And if they're good, she's going to say, wow, that's brilliant. Let's go for it. And if there's a reason why, you know, she knows it's been, that particular thing has been tried before, she will explain to you the rationale of why she's not. And, you know, when my interns would first start, they never quite believed it. But when they experienced that this was actually the, and more recently, I've always worked generationally. You know, you talked about how I work cross sectorally, and uh, so I always have 20 somethings around me,
Yeah,
because
but
and
what you mentioned there, Nadine, I think is so important. It's this management beyond budgeting, if you like. That's means you're a servant leader. You should the information you get, whether information is really based, and take this information. It's gold. If somebody is telling you, give some tips, what is wrong in your process, what clients doesn't like. If you are as a leader and deciding for everybody, that makes no sense. You have to empower your people to decide where the information is, and then
yeah,
and you don't have. I think even the management process, if what you're learning at universities, this old management the processes are a little bit wrong and outdated, because you need diversity, this cross-functional, age, gender, whatsoever, is important to get new ideas, to get new
hmm
ways, especially in a fast-moving environment. And you have to learn to the time to market. You have to get away from this optimizing the resources as if you're mimicking a machine. People are not a
hmm
resource. You're
right,
just optimizing. People are
right,
valuable, and especially in companies who are doing brain work, you can't say them from 9 to 5 you invented, from 5 to 8 you're doing what doesn't work. You doesn't
yeah,
employ
yeah,
people to tell them what they to do.
exactly. And you know, my experience is backed up by research that shows that when you engage people in a decision making process, when you seek their input and they feel valued, heard, listened to, even if your decision is not exactly what they want or even close to what they want,
Yeah.
they are more likely to go along with it
And
because you
support.
included them in the process.
Exactly, because they were
And
hurt. They were hurt.
exactly, they were hurt. And to the on the contrary, the research and my experience shows that even if it's exactly what they want, if they haven't been engaged in the process of decision making, they're far less likely to execute against it. And coming back to surrounding myself with 20 somethings who, like, I feel like they're my teachers.
Yeah.
So the relationship is not just like, I'm mentoring them. I'm a half a century older than they are. So certainly I have things that they can learn. But honestly, genuinely, I learn as much from them, if not more, because they are so much more digitally savvy. They know things that are natural for them that I have to force myself to learn because it wasn't part of my upbringing and my earlier experiences. And so for example, we'll be working on a project and I'll say we need to do such and such, and I'm giving the correct directional guidance, but then they'll say, well, it would be so much better if we did this, and then they're giving like a way better way to communicate it to and so it's like there's this really deep level of mutual respect where
Yeah.
I feel like two-way street. We're learning from each other, and we sense that, and they sense that, and they sense that I'm not treating them like kids. I'm treating them like peers because they're my teachers, just as I'm their teacher.
Exactly, and that's exactly what is so important. Is you have to accept you don't know everything, and
Mhm.
together you can even leapfrog the solutions for existing problems. If you only think on your own, you're stuck in your own thoughts.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need input from external side to get new ideas.
I mean, to take it one step further, a really confident leader is able to say, I genuinely don't know what to do. Do you have, I'd like to hear your ideas. I mean, that
Exactly.
shows, and I do that often, by the way. And I don't feel in any way that it diminishes my, uh, well, certainly it doesn't diminish my own sense of self-worth, but it does not diminish how they view me. In fact, I think it enhances their level of respect. And when I'm willing to say, I really don't know about that, then they're far more likely to trust when I say, here's something I really know is true. And I'd
Exactly.
like you to think about.
It's your authority. Means the authority is well built on the things you don't know. Therefore, you build a team. The team is complementary. Means if you only
Exactly.
pick people who look like you,
Yeah.
your team isn't good. You need people who have different opinions and attack your thoughts because it's about the best decision, not about the decision of the most powerful, and not the lowest common denominator as well, where it's nobody is buying in anymore. Yeah?
You talked a little bit about my company because Global Consulting, and we have a sister not for profit, which is Global Citizen Circle. And
Mm-hmm.
Global Citizen Circle has for almost 50 years now, since 1974, been convening very diverse people from like different nationalities, different sectors, different age groups. I mean, everything that you said: racial diversity, gender diversity, uh,
Neural.
religious, political perspective, to discuss the issues of the day in dialogue. And we were for the first forever doing it in person in different locations around the world. And we have since March 2020 been doing it virtually,
Mm-hmm.
which ironically has allowed for even more global participation on every single one of these once a month gatherings of people literally coming from 50 different countries, 200 people. And it's a facilitated dialogue where two or three people who are experts on a topic, whether it's climate change, access to education, healthcare reform, whatever, gun violence, they will kick off the discussion with like each 5 minutes of opening remarks, and then the rest of the 90 minutes is a facilitated um, interaction. Like every one of the 200 people who are on it, can raise their hands to ask a question, raise their virtual hand, like I can do. Can I do it here on my raise my hand? No, I don't have it here. Raise my hand. I don't know that it's going to show on the screen. It's on my
No,
screen.
it doesn't. It
Um,
doesn't work, I guess. Yeah,
yeah, but you know what I mean, that they raise their hand, and then they kind of can either ask a question of one of the experts, and
yeah,
or they can share their own expertise. And it's just fantastic and exciting. And every time people get off of these um, Zoom global citizen circles, we get flooded by scores of responses. That was amazing. Like I really felt like I was in the room with
yeah.
people, and they were listening to me, and I was learning so much, and it felt so alive. And
It's
so
the
it's really
engagement.
exciting.
Yeah? It's so important for the feedback, the engagement. They're happy, they're in that. And your company developed a proprietary framework as well for the strategic relationship engagement. Could you shed some light on
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So, I mean, as you said, I've been teaching, speaking, and coaching on this for decades through my company, which helps individuals connect to their core purpose. It helps organizations connect internally by breaking down the silos, and then externally with their stakeholders, their friendly ones like customers or suppliers, and even adversarial ones, as I describe in my TEDx,
Mhm.
adversaries to allies.
Mhm.
And when I arrived at IMD Business School 2010 as their first female executive in residence, I began distilling down the lessons learned from my experience of the power, the importance, and the results of unity, empathy, fairness, acceptance of human differences, and creating lessons learned from my practice, which I put into this proprietary framework, strategic relational engagement.
Mhm. That's fantastic. And with regard to of typical behaviors, you can advise other entrepreneurs. Probably you have so much experience anyway, because as a professor in IMD, what are your advice for entrepreneurs really on which behaviors they should work to improve so they can really be more successful in leading companies or as well engaging with clients, engaging with the main shareholders, stakeholders, and so on.
So, as we both said, that while humanity may appear to be disconnected, that's a surface view,
Hmm.
because at our core, we are deeply, intimately, inextricably interconnected.
Yeah.
And so relationships are the route to social change and innovation. Connectedness gives us the best chance of saving humanity, saving the planet, cementing political and social systems that help us thrive rather than divide and destroy us. And so I advise entrepreneurs to take a deep breath, figure out what they want to do, and then find others to work with them. The number of times I have worked with startups, whether they be business startups or not-for-profit startups, because I've done a lot with both. And as you know, I've also worked with governments and UN agencies and other kinds of, bilateral and multilateral organizations. Um, the number of times that I have to say to them, have you first done a canvas of who else is out there doing, if not exactly what you're intending to do, something close to what you're intending to do? And once you've canvassed it and figured out, who's out there, I mean, you could call that the competition, but I like to call that the ecosphere that you're working in.
Yeah.
Um, Reach out to those people, because at the very least, you're going to mitigate against them trying to sabotage you. Like, who's
Yeah.
this new kid on the block trying to do something that I've been doing like successfully for several decades, and using, maybe this new kid on the block is more sophisticated with social media algorithms, and so they have a bigger following than I have, even though I've been doing it for decades. And you mitigate against them trying to sabotage you or put you down or minimize your impact. And at the best, you open the door to possible collaboration, cooperation, communication, all the things we've been talking about. Um, because you can learn from them. You might even decide to work together rather than creating a separate entity. Perhaps your entity in its incubator phase can be housed within another entity that's doing this. And I mean, there's the world is so big, and
Yeah,
the issues that we have to, the services and the goods that we have to provide in order to, make the world more whole,
yeah,
are enormous. And so, you know, forget about the lone, the, the image that's coming to mind when I was a kid, there was the commercials for the Marlboro Man, a cowboy on a horse by himself with rugged features, just, all alone, me, I'm going to do this. Um,
yeah. This typical
no,
leader. I'm the leader. I will do every. It won't work. It never worked. To be honest, it never worked. Every time you have a leader, and he's so self-obsessed with himself, with his good decisions he thinks he's doing, it's normally always a catastrophe
yeah,
in a
yeah.
political context as well in a company context. You have to as well.
In every single context, I mean, honestly, Michael, think about families and how people can make decisions to separate from a certain member of their family because they don't like something they did or said, or you know it, it it's like it really starts, I mean, with your spouse, with your children, with your, in my case, grandchildren. I mean, you have to put effort into staying connected, no matter how much you love other people. And this is one of the lessons I learned from my mother at a young age. My mother was the one who always convened family at holiday times, at birthdays and other occasions, and always held Friday night dinners for her friends from college. My mother stayed friends with her college friends that she met when she was a 16-year-old
Wow,
freshman
wow,
for
yeah.
more than 7 decades until she died, like, and she did it because she hosted these dinners, and she would say to me, Nadine, like, no matter how close I am to them, if I don't see them regularly, everybody has their own life. Everybody gets busy with their own stuff, and it's really easy to lose touch with another person. And that's actually one of the things that I'm exploring in
Yeah.
the book, The Power of Connectedness, is, not only why it's so important, but how easy it is to lose it, and what are some of the challenges that are to maintain it, and what are some of the um, techniques to overcome those challenges, to renew them. There's a famous quote that I don't really like. It's something like, it takes a lifetime to earn trust, and it takes a second to lose it forever. And
Lost
I don't think it
earns
takes.
and drops and
I
lost in
I
buckets.
think
Yeah.
you Yeah, I think you can lose it in a second. I just don't agree with that last part, forever. I think that even when a relationship has been ruptured, if you make the effort to reach out to that person, or a relationship between two, organizations, a supplier, a vendor, whatever, there's been some rupture of, you know, breakdown of faith, trust, whatever. um, if you genuinely approach the other with a sincere desire for rapprochement, for recreating, in my experience, it's absolutely possible to overcome even the biggest fissures. They're all fixable, but they take effort. Just like, I mean, you know, there's the first part where you're not going to maintain it at all if you don't keep regular, consistent communication, interaction.
Mm.
Um, but specifically when it breaks down, you need to really step up to the plate. And you also need to own when it's been your fault. Like I did
Exactly.
something that, and then also you need to have the humility that even if it's not your fault, even if you believe it squarely sits in the,
Don't do finger pointing.
because
Yeah.
it's so easy to go, oh, it's their fault. They need to apologize first. Come on, life is short. You can spend your whole life waiting for someone to apologize to you. Instead, be the bigger, larger person and say, you know what? It doesn't matter who caused this. This relationship is too important and I want to salvage it. And I'm not going to come in saying, well, it was your fault, but like, I'm going to come in with the humility of what do I need to
Yeah.
do for this to, for us to re rebond.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I only can support this way of thinking because life is about relationship. Means you have to accept to understand how important it is to relate to people. Otherwise, you are completely lonely. If you're lonely, you never get input. You can read so much books, but it doesn't to talk to people is much more valuable. You get much quicker
Yeah.
insights, you get new influences, and
Yeah.
life would be very empty without relationships. But on the flip
It
coin
totally
is
would be.
it's
And think about the studies that are now being done. And actually, they've been for quite some time, but that you see more of them since the time of COVID, that people who are alone and isolated
depressive.
have lower mortality, have higher mortality rates. They die younger. They get illnesses earlier. They get more debilitating side effects of the isolation. I mean, even having a pet, and I shouldn't say even having a pet because I know those people who have pets that their dog or their cat is really a member of the family. But for an older person who's living alone, having a pet, having a plant to care for. I don't know whether it's showing in my screen, but having, anything, being
Absolutely,
responsible for another live being
you can talk to,
just keeps your health, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health.
and your energy levels up. Otherwise, you feel empty. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Because I
Um,
today in another
and
discussion
I don't
about
know whether you've experienced this, but I find that the Zoom meetings, it takes more effort on my part to keep the
yeah,
energy level going because I'm not right in the room with the person. Like when you're right with a person, you're not just hearing their words, you're not just seeing their facial expression.
the body
You
stage,
see their
nothing.
whole
Yeah,
body,
yeah.
their posture, their energy. You feel their energy, and so it's much easier to kind of like sense where they are and approach them. And
Yeah.
with Zoom,
It's more
um,
difficult. Yeah,
it it takes a lot of effort. I find that at the end of my work days these days, because I've been working remotely since March 2020.
yeah.
Well, I did my last in-person February 2020. Actually, I now resumed a couple of in-person workshops that I did one in September, but only after I was assured that everybody was double vaccinated and would be tested before they came into the program and tested every 2 days and wore masks and
It's more
spaces that were,
complicated, definitely. Yeah. But it's so valuable to have a live, not a virtual one, just to see people in full body posture and with a full energy behind them.
and to be able to hug people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think people have really to understand how important it's communication, be it by words, by your body, by your presence, and that's what makes humans humans, but as well animals animals. They are as well. It's about emotion. It's about emotion. Yeah, And if you want to convey a message, I think the emotion has the biggest part. If you don't touch the emotion, you never convey a message. It's
Yeah.
very difficult.
And Michael, that, goes into the compassion dimension we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's like another thing that I would advise entrepreneurs, and for that matter, anybody, is to spend some time centering
Mm.
and breathing and finding um, that heart, your heart,
Yeah.
your soul, your and maintaining internally a relationship with who you are, grounded in your reality, and then from that place, um,
Yeah.
I know in business it's hard to use the word love, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think it's from a place of love
Yeah.
and a place of, I think that's the most profound emotion
Yeah.
and the most real emotion. I feel like it's love that holds everything together.
Yes,
Um,
Nadine, I can
and
only agree. It's self care. You have to take care of yourself first. Really, self. You have to love
yeah,
yourself. If you don't love yourself, um, y- your energy level is low. Your motivations are low. You can't help others. How you can help others? How you
yeah,
can advise others, mentor others, whatever. If you don't have a self
yeah.
care about you.
Yeah. In fact, I just submitted an article to Forbes Council's about exactly that, self-care in the time of COVID and at other times of duress. And now
Hmm?
it won't appear live yet on my Forbes feed because there's a 4 to 5 week review edit process
I
before it's
know
live.
it.
I'll send you the link when it is live. But my on my Forbes Council profile there are a half a dozen articles I've written and um, more than a dozen of what they call their expert panels that I've contributed to, and they're all different takes on connectedness. And this particular one is all about self care
Yeah.
during the time of COVID, and as a way of looking at self care anytime under duress. And a lot of people who are working are often under duress. A lot of people, whether they're working at home,
Mhm.
raising a family, or they're working in a big multinational, or they're working in a small startup, um, they're under duress. And it's all about self care. And I use that, famous. There's a reason why on airplanes the stewardess says, put on your own oxygen mask first before you try to help anybody else.
Yeah.
Because if you're not breathing, you can't help anybody.
I agree completely. The self care is so important as well for leaders in the company in a virtual space. You have to take care about the well-being of your people because you have to be interested in what are their people's life, their personal life. If you're invited to their home via Zoom conference and then the kids
Right,
are running through the screen, ask them how do they feel with the situation that the parents are at home and disturbing their school life. Yeah? But just to be interested in the life of other people, then it's much easier to relate and much easier as well to find a common idea what to do. What are the next steps? You know?
exactly.
And in order to do so, you have to be clear with your own values, who you are, and you have to take really self care.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you can't help other people.
You know, I often say to people that we need to each define what our own inviolable is.
Yeah.
When you talk about those core values, because it's different for everyone. Um, you mentioned I've taught at many universities and taught regularly at NYU when I was New York based and
Mm.
regularly at IMD once I was Switzerland based and in other universities around the world I've taught. And there's, oh, I just lost myself in that.
Mm.
Where did I start off on that one, Michael?
No, but just the time is flying. What I will do now, because the people probably wants to connect with you as well, and I'm just putting here in
Sure.
your LinkedIn and Twitter profile, and then you talk a little bit because there are wonderful pictures of people everybody knows, and you know them personally. That's more amazing. Huh? Hopefully you can see that. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can find you on LinkedIn and Twitter, but probably just tell it where you meet.
I'm Nadine Hack on every single platform, and on Instagram I'm Nadine.Hack, because believe it or not, there was another Nadine Hack, but just Nadine Hack on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah, you're more or less on all social media and actively as well. Means they can contact you there straight away and send you a DM if you like. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and the time
Yeah,
is flying.
absolutely.
Yeah, the time is flying really, really quickly. Just to give you the last three advices, what I'm typically doing, what you would like to address to entrepreneurs if they're setting up or are already an entrepreneur for a long time, what should they do, especially in COVID time, in crisis times, to better connect to their people, to their clients, to their stakeholders, to people in general? I'm
Hmm.
just switching back to our camera style. Sorry.
That's okay. um, I think we've really pretty much covered that.
Mhm.
But again, I'll, just at the risk of repeating myself, um, figure out your own values. Oh, and that's where I was going, the inviolables, because they're different for everybody. So in my courses, I taught development courses, and people would say to me, people who were running not for profits would say to me, so we only want to take clean money. And I'd say to them, well,
What is
what
it?
do you think is clean money? Like, what do you think
Vicuña
is
non
clean?
olet.
Is the Ford Foundation money clean? Yeah, like Ford Foundation is a wonderful organization doing wonderful things, but it was originally funded by, some industrial revolution type exploitative work that was not very worker friendly, and so what's clean? Like maybe Ben and Jerry's ice cream is clean, but like, has Ben and Jerry, or their the people who run their company now, been able to absolutely check every single step of the supply chain, that there's not a single child being used in labor, that every single coffee bean is covered by a leaf, and not, exploiting the environment? No. So, so I say, if you're working for the American Cancer Society, don't take money from a cigarette company. If you're working for uh, a women's health, a women's empowerment organization, don't take money from the Playboy Foundation. But it's going to be different for everybody. So each person who's setting up anything or continuing something they've been doing has to know, what are your inviolables? What are your absolute core values that you will not cross, no matter what, no matter how attractive the potential contract is? If it's coming, like, I will never in my life work with an arms munitions factory. Like, no matter what I will never work with them. Now, I have, on the other hand, worked with extractive industries,
Mhm.
because I think that I can help them improve, change, move from pulling ore out of the earth, and transform into renewable energies. And I
Mhm.
have worked with them. Now,
Mhm.
I've been accused by purists in the environmental movement that I shouldn't, but that I've made my decision. And if I think that I can help move the needle and change somebody's behavior, and again, that comes back to my TEDx. It was actually, I was brought together loggers, environmentalists, and government leaders at a time when they all, in the 70s, when they all viewed each other as absolute enemies, when they,
They're fighting
environmentalists
each
said,
other.
chain
Yeah.
yourself to tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the issue is it might feel cathartic to chain yourself to a tree, but it's not going to change the practices of the logging company. So by fostering and facilitating a dialogue between the environmentalists and the logging companies, we actually got them to change their practices so that for every tree they cut down, they planted two trees,
It's
and it was the
about
beginning of,
buy-in, both sides. Yeah.
yes, it was the beginning of renewable resources before that word was even in the common lexicon.
Before the
So
circular idea
know what
came.
your inviolables are. When I set up my company, I explained to the lawyer and the accountant who I met with when I was doing my articles of incorporation, I explained the healthcare benefit package I wanted to set up. This was just me alone. I didn't yet have a single employee.
Mm.
And both of them said, "Oh, don't be ridiculous." This was in the US when I was setting up a corporation. And they said you don't have to do that until you have 50 employees. And I said, no, 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 I'm not even going to have one part-time employee where I'm not offering a healthcare benefit, because healthcare is something that I have fought for, the access to health as a human right,
Mm.
for my entire life. So I cannot set up a company that won't have healthcare.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that whoever's listening that's your value, but you do have to know what your values are, and make certain that you establish or you sustain whatever
Mm.
enterprise you're doing, holding true to your core values, because um, there are so many temptations that can buffet you and
Yeah.
pull you off course. um, and then once you know that, and once you know what you're doing, make sure that anybody you bring on, you bring them on in this kind of egalitarian fashion that we've been discussing
Mm.
over this hour, so that they are really teammates. You are a teammate to them, because um, it it's you have a moral obligation to treat every human being the same, whether they're the busboy or the head of state. And I certainly try to do that in my life. But beyond having a moral obligation, it also just makes good business sense. I mean, the
Absolutely.
better you treat every person who's in your employ, or who you use as a service, subcontractor, the more you treat them with dignity and respect, the the better. I mean, it's a karmic circle of what you put out comes back.
The results, the
And then,
performance is better. Yeah.
yeah, the results are, the whole is always far greater than the sum of the parts.
Wonderful.
And keep that in your mind at all times, that yes, this may be your baby. And especially for entrepreneurs, when I started my own company, it was, there was a reason I started my own company. I held a lot of senior positions in a lot of different sectors. And the prior job, it was a government appointee position. And when administrations changed, somebody else was put into the post, and I was immediately headhunted by a lot of organizations to be their, each one called it something different: their president, their CEO, their executive
Mm.
director. But in each case, there was a board of directors who I'd have to report to. And at that particular time, when I went to like maybe 3 interviews at most, and I would always be seated across the table from 3 white-haired white men
Yeah.
who were the board making the decision. Now, I have nothing against white men. I'm married to a gorgeous, wonderful white man, and all of my kids and grandkids are white. So I have nothing against white men. I have 3 gorgeous grandsons, 2 gorgeous sons. It's 2 wonderful son-in-laws, and they all happen to be white.
Yeah, but
But
the world is much more
I
colorful
looked
than white men. Yeah.
exactly, and so when I looked at that, I thought, these are the people who I have to report to. No, I don't want that. I want a more diverse environment. And so I decided to form my own company. And that's when I made the decision on all these issues, like healthcare, like
Yeah.
um, you know, how I was going to treat my employees in a way that I wished I would have been treated by
Yeah.
others in the many jobs I had before. And so, stick to your values, value your people, whether they're inside of your operation or
Outside.
stakeholders who have an interest in your operation, value them, engage them, validate them, genuinely listen to them, um, and do this over and over and over. It's not like a one shot deal, like that you have the initial interview and it's good chemistry and then, okay, now we're set. No, it's like, just like I told you, my mother describing why she did dinner parties for her friends from college every Friday night for decades and decades. It's like, as long as you have other people that are part of your life, whether it's part of your professional life or your personal life, keep engaging with them, keep renewing the relationship, keep refreshing it. And as we said, the only way you can refresh your relationships is to refresh your relationship with yourself, to be grounded, to be whole, whatever it takes. For different people, that's different things. For some people, it's going out and running. For other people, it's hiking in the woods. For other people, it's doing yoga or a meditative practice. It doesn't really matter what you do to ground yourself, but find some way. And the simplest way is literally you can do it anywhere and nobody knows you're doing it. Just take
Exactly.
3 deep.
Exactly.
Stop
That's
with all
wonderful,
your
Nadine.
craziness, because every single day on my agenda is crazy. And my to do list is always longer at the end of the day than it was at the beginning of the day. And I've barely made a notch into what I thought I was going to get done. And that's pretty much true for most people who are probably listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be there tomorrow, but just remember to take those moments where you just
Yeah.
and you
Wonderful.
remind yourself,
Yeah. Wonderful, Nadine.
okay,
I think it's so valuable,
a
so good.
long relay race. This is all, I'm in this for the long haul, and I want to be healthy for a long time, and I want to be alive for a long time, and I want the people I love to be healthy and alive for a long time. So take the time to cement those relationships.
Wonderful. That's a brilliant, brilliant words. I love that. Thank you very much. And please don't miss out to reach out to Nadine. Really, it's you're so full of facets, and your advice is so clear, crystal clear, and really it's kind of gold nuggets how the younger generation is telling me now. Yeah, it's so much advice, and so I think it's easy. It's about a communication relationship, and it's even fun if you do that. And it's a win-win for everybody if you're respectful, if you are sticking to your values, and it's fantastic. Thank you, Nadine, for.
So I know you were live streaming this on LinkedIn, Michael. My question is, if people missed it today, will there be a link that they can watch it afterwards?
Yes, yes, I will put
Great.
it straight as well on YouTube and as well in the Facebook
Okay,
group and
super. Okay, I'll
eh,
post that too so that people can
exactly. And
join
I will
in.
send you all the links anyway. Then you have all the three links, and I will put as well the voice stream into an audio podcast.
Wonderful.
Then even people
Well,
going running or ironing, they can listen to it.
it was
Thank you.
wonderful to talk with you today, Michael.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for
much,
inviting me to
Nadine.
be your
Thank you.
guest.
Bye. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Okay, I'm just stopped the recording. How did you find it?
I thought that was good. How did you feel?
It was a easy flow. Was very good with Zoom because you have this lagging time. Sometimes I started talking,
Yeah,
but I realized you were still talking. You just did a little break in between.
it's funny. In the screen that I see myself on top,
Yeah.
my lips and my mouth, but in the screen in yours, it's a little bit of a delay. And also, as I said, I didn't realize that I had it, you know, like I was, ordinarily I'd be looking straight up, and
Yeah, the
the
typical
whole time I was
laptop
looking
problem.
down.
Yeah, and can do the
But
same. Yeah. And the
but
sun
I
came around. I'm with sunshine now. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
Nadine. Thank you very much. I will send you definitely the links to LinkedIn. It's easy to find it probably now, but to the YouTube group as well, to the YouTube um, channel. Plus the live stream went then as well. Sorry, the audio I will use for an audio podcast.
Great.
Yeah, then you have all three links or all four links. Thank you, Nadine. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Wonderful. I did too.
And every time again, I would love to have you on the show, or if you have to do something vice versa, I would like as well. Thank you. Okay,
Okay. See you
bye.
soon.
See you
Bye
later.
bye.
Bye.